Pokémon Sword and Shield landed on the Nintendo Switch back in November, and well, I'm not one to toot my own trumpet, but I think I can consider myself somewhat of an expert on the situation. I mean, I have racked up over 500 hours, so surely I must know what I'm talking about, right? Let's address the elephant in the room first of all. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to climb upon my soapbox and talk about Dexit. Okay, oh boy, remember that whole hot garbage of a mess? No? Yes? Maybe? Well, truth be told, I'm pretty sure that people have already moved on to moan about something else entirely. Like Ricky Gervais right now, I'm pretty sure is the hot new thing to complain about. But I digress. There was a lot of hot air blown over Game Freak's decision to exclude a national dex, and oh boy did you guys not like that. Alright, let me just get the most important statement out of the way first. It's totally inexcusable that Game Freak decided to not include my boy, Jigglypuff. No, I'm not upset that Charizard got yet another form whilst my good boys and girls Squirtle and Bulbasaur haven't even been included. But come on, really? No Jiggly? Man. Whinging and moaning aside though, what good did the lack of a national dex bring if any? Well, actually, quite a lot. And I'm speaking from experience here as someone who has played almost every mainline Pokemon game to date, but with less pocket monsters to line, your pockets with, is it really so bad? I'd say not. With a smaller dex, it means that completion is a far more manageable goal for your more casual players. Breeding has never been as accessible as it has been in Sword and Shield, and that coupled with only 400 Pokemon to collect means I get a shiny, you get a shiny, everyone gets a shiny. Seriously, the shiny charm is so easy to get this time around. So, I hope you like eggs. A lot of eggs. I get it. Not all of your favourite critters were included, and you're not alone in being upset about that. I promise. But what about the negative? I've seen and heard some arguments that a smaller collection of Pokemon means the meta in ranked battles, for example, has less and less choice, and older favourites that dominated the ladder are no longer available. But then I'm convinced none of this actually even matters as I fire up a ranked battle and get dominated by a Gyarados. No worries, I've got the next one right. Oh, nope, okay, I got my ass handed to me by Ludicolo in a rain team this time. Next one? Maybe? Oh, nope, okay, Trick Room. I hate Trick Room. Sure, Hatterini and Indeedee might be two new common sights in a Trick Room team, but my point is, you can still play the way you used to, or as close to. It's just the Pokemon that change from game to game, season to season, and really, when you just want to watch the world burn and win every game at the top of your play skill, it's the suffering and tears of your opponents that matter most, not which critter you use to deliver the smackdown. Come on dude, take a tissue, you'll need it. I guess what I'm trying to say here is, you make your own fun, invent your own strategies and teams. Hello, I'm looking at you Wolfie trademarked eject button whimsicots. If you're only playing for the meta, well, I've got bad news for you because you're going to be using a lot less than the 400 available Pokemon, and I'm pretty sure at least some of these have been available in many Pokemon games past and present. The world needs less Gyarados. Seriously, I'm sick of being destroyed by Gyarados. I'm proposing a cull of Magikarp. Someone needs to put these flopping messes out of their misery. Seriously, look at them. But what about those trees though? Okay, alright, I'll level with you. They do look like they belong in Minecraft, but for all the things you all went wild for, it was the trees. Did they ruin my fun at any given point in the 500 plus hours I've spent in the game? No, actually, not even once. I know, I get it, the trees are a smaller part of a much bigger problem. That being that the game, graphically, well, it ain't no Henry Cavill to look at, that's for sure. With the likes of Super Mario Odyssey and Luigi's Mansion 2, Pokémon Sword and Shield just looks worse and worse in comparison. But I've not once felt like I've had to scrub my eyes out with iodine after looking at it. Thanks Grandma, I feel so much better now. Could it look better? Absolutely. Does it drive away from the fun and experience of playing the game through? Not in the slightest. Let's talk Pokemon models and animations. Game Freak made a little bit of an oopsie when they told us the dex cut was in favour of better models and animations because, well, the animations, they aren't too cracky now, are they? Some people argue that if it isn't broken, don't fix it, and I quite often use this saying myself. That's not to say Pokemon wouldn't benefit from a massive graphical overhaul, but it's Pokemon, it's what we've grown to love and expect. But when you toss false promises into the mix, I can understand why people are upset. But I think at the end of the day, appreciating the way a game looks is mostly a personal thing. And whilst we can all agree that the trees are ugly as heck and that any person or company shouldn't tell big stinking Pinocchio nose-growing fibs, in my own personal opinion, it hasn't driven away any of the fun I've had throughout my time spent playing the game. And for those of you who are disgusted with the way the game looks, I think we are all united regardless of opinion that hopefully Game Freak learns from its mistakes. So, if this particular installment in the Pokemon mainline series hasn't blessed your eyeballs, fret not my friends, for your earholes have surely not been forgotten. Seriously, why is the soundtrack to this game so damn good? Toby Fox's Battle Tower theme aside, even the rest of the soundtrack is flippin' amazing. I've been bopping along to all manner of tracks since the game's release, and I don't see myself stopping anytime soon. If there's one thing that really has made this game so amazingly fun to play, it's something that even Game Freak has no influence over, and that's the Pokemon community. Seriously, we've come so far. The days of sitting tethered to your friend's Game Boy via link cable as you desperately shielded your screen from the glaring sun just so you could see what you were doing, well, those are long gone. Nostalgia aside, I'm glad this is no longer the case. With the use of Discord and Reddit, these days you don't have to travel far to find someone to trade with, play with, talk to about all things Pokemon, and the list goes on. Seriously, 1000%, the best thing about Sword and Shield for me has been the community. You guys are fantastic. I'm a collector, so naturally I want to tick things off on a massive list and constantly be working towards something. And for me, in Pokemon games, that's balls. Specifically, Apricorn Balls, Dream Balls, and Beast Balls. Oh boy, do not get me started on Beast Balls. I'm somewhat of a Beast Ball queen. My first goal after having completed the decks was to then collect every single Pokemon possible in a Beast Ball. Yeah, I know, I'm insane. Considering that these are limited in quantity, I'd not have been able to achieve this without the help of other collectors. Seriously, the community is the best. I think, in my opinion, that the game is propped up massively by a wonderful community, and if you ask me, this makes it easier to overlook some of the problems that some people might have had with the game. I know it doesn't necessarily fix any of these problems, but having a great community certainly makes half of them more bearable. Speaking of playing together though, I think we're all in agreement that YComs should be renamed to YikesCom. If I have just one complaint about the game, it's the terrible methods you have to take in order to play with friends. Seriously, the amount of times I've not been able to join a raid lobby, or the any hundreds of times I've matched with someone else who is using the same link code I've set for trading, oh boy, what a nightmare. But honestly, if Nintendo's now sadly less than stellar expected online services is the worst thing about the game for me, it really says a lot for all the complaints the game received in the build up to release, because the vast majority of them haven't bothered me one bit at all. I'll round this out with my thoughts on the storyline of the game. I've saved this till last in case you haven't yet included the game yourself, as to not spoil anything for you. But here we go. Why does Sonia get to do all of the cool stuff? Why does Sonia get to uncover the truth about the legendary heroes whilst telling me to just tackle the gym challenges? I mean, okay, making my Pokemon mahoosive is super fun and all, but you're gotta exclude me from the juicy bits, Sonia? Huh? Sonia? Seriously, this should have been called Pokemon Sonia and Sonia. Not to mention, Chairman Rose felt like Game Freak got 3/4 of the way through the game's development, and then they said, oh fuck, we forgot to include a bad guy. Rhetorical questions aside, the story in comparison to the game's predecessors isn't all that I hoped it would be, but then the time it took for me to complete the story and post-game really pales in comparison to just how many hundreds of hours I've spent just doing other fun stuff. Eggs, raids, more eggs, failing to connect to raids, eggs. Yeah, needless to say, I've had my money's worth, and the story, whilst being, in my opinion, remember, these are all just my opinions, I don't want to upset anyone, it's underwhelming. Really though, despite this, it hasn't driven away from the fun of the game. In fact, I think it's allowed me to find fun in the areas of a Pokemon game that normally I would usually overlook. Couple this with the fact that everything is so darn accessible now, I'm convinced that the lackluster storyline was a worthy sacrifice. But you know, if I'm being honest, I'd like the best of both worlds. Maybe in the next installment. Hey Game Freak. So, with all the mess of rambling out of the way, was Pokémon Sword and Shield really a disaster? No, grow up you big babies, nothing in this world is perfect, except Jigglypuff. I love the game, and I will continue to love it for a long time yet, or at least until March 20th rolls around, and then Pokemon probably will be long forgotten about, at least for a little while. I do understand the majority of the complaints made by others, and I even agree with many of the points made, especially those regarding a lackluster story, but I wouldn't say there's anything I dislike about the game. Just because it could be better doesn't mean it wasn't good, but acceptable doesn't mean best. I think at the end of the day, this is all just a case of opinion versus opinion. In summary, to me, in my personal opinion, Generation 8 is amazing. The new Pokemon are so cool, so cute, and some even a little bit weird, and I can get behind weird. The idea of max raids to me is super duper fun. It's just a shame that joining one is a difficult task in and of itself half the time. The story felt rushed in places, and I wish we were more involved in the discoveries, but that's not to say I didn't enjoy it in the slightest. Sure, it could look better, but when you tie in everything about Sword and Shield, good and bad, and then prop it up with a fantastic community, you can consider my pickle thoroughly tickled. So in short, you either like it or you don't. There is no, this is a good game, this is a bad game. If you like it, you like it. If you disliked it, you disliked it. Just because other people share the same opinion as you doesn't mean to say that you are right and the other people are wrong, because that's not how the world works, sadly. As always guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm feeling good, confident, motivated, and ready to catapult myself at neck break speeds back into YouTube. Thanks so much for sticking around whilst I got my shit together. I really appreciate it. I had hoped to get a guide out today, but I figured instead of doing an episode, I'd do something a little bit different, something that I wanted to talk about weeks ago and probably should have done then. I get that I'm a little bit late to this topic, but I felt like it was better to talk about this long after the dust had settled, because I think it's easier to have a good grasp of what is and what isn't at that point. But yeah, to people saying that this game was a total failure and was not going to sell and that Game Freak needs to be boycotted, well, 500 hours and still going. It can't be all bad. If my content tickles your pickle, please consider subscribing, liking the video, or even leaving a comment below. I'd really like to hear your opinions on the game now that we've all had ample time to play it. Until next time guys, bye!